I completely understand the importance of following rules, but I also think it's fair to question whether this could warrant an exception or at least a formal, and I'm reading this and I'm doing the Jim Carrey in the Truman Show thing where he's looking around going, who are you talking to, right? Where she starts giving the pitch for the knives or whatever the fuck, or the scissors, and he's like, who the fuck are you talking to? Are you a person? What is happening right now? Here we are, Abe Cast Iron Brains, a podcast that is thoroughly waterlogged and running out of days in the regular season. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
Yeah, my wrist hurts.
Lori's wrist hurts. Tonight is Tuesday, May 27th, 2025. A rainy day and a rainy week here in Charlottesville, Virginia. No baseball tonight. Not that would have prevented us from recording, but we're starting a little bit early. Maybe we go to bed at a reasonable time.
Don't tell the people lies.
Of course. Well, if we can keep Abe's yapping to a minimum,
right.
I think we'll get through this. All right.
No promises.
Abe, you have a good weekend?
Yeah. Had a nice weekend. Spent some time with the family. Seems like every time I go there for like a get-together, one of my nephews had their 5th grade graduation, which I did not know was a thing, but I thought it was in the 6th grade. But anyways, we had a get-together for him, and whenever you play with one of the kids, like the nieces, nephews, and some random kids that I think are my cousins, you play with one child. Like if you give a piggyback ride to one child, at least this is how it works at my place, I have to give one to everyone, and I was exhausted very quickly. To where and they keep track. They have a weird sense of justice, hey, that's not fair. Like you get 30 more seconds.
They have nothing else going on.
Yeah, they're always paying attention to how long somebody else is riding. But
this is why your jogs around the Beltline need to start involving those weighted backpacks that people wear, so that you can train properly for all of your nieces and nephews.
Yeah, that would be a big help. But yeah, and this is Memorial Day weekend here in Atlanta. Typically, they have the Jazz Festival. And every Memorial Day, because it's literally a stone's throw away from where I live, I'll make a stop just to kind of listen to some of the music.
Do you know that because you throw rocks at them?
No, I don't throw the rocks. It's just, it's right there. Last year, Andre 3000 had his little flute thing that he showed up for. And so there were a lot of people there. I went to go listen for a little bit. It wasn't very good. And this year, there was no, big marquee name that I knew. And I was like, you know what? I don't even like jazz. I go every year. I don't know why. It's not particularly...
It's right there. Why wouldn't
It's right there. But I was like, no. I'm just going to... I jogged by it, but I didn't go partake in it. Because I was like, if this was a blues festival or a rock festival or, something else, maybe. But I'm done with jazz. Right. So I did not do that.
You're a grown-ass man. Yeah. You're just done with jazz. Yes. Enough putting up with jazz.
The jury is in with jazz, not a fan.
I agree with you. I used to complain a great deal about jazz, and I said, probably to Lori, but I think also to other people, if you ever catch me, as I'm slipping into middle age, becoming a jazz appreciator, something's gone wrong.
I don't know.
Brains-wise. I know that it is very impressive in all of that, the ability to wield the instrument and to make it make interesting noises, and certainly the creativity involved is wonderful, and a grand expression of the human spirit doing its best in the world. That's all well and good, but it's just it's not for me.
Such a stellar reputation, and then you listen to it what is this shit? Yeah. And again, maybe I'm just some boor that doesn't get it, but it doesn't do anything.
Yeah. We had my mother came into town. We had an attempt at sort of an evening away. Here as the baseball season is wrapping up, we were going to take a day and go away. And our activity ended up taking a much longer part of the day than we anticipated. So we didn't even get to our hotel until almost 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, wow.
At which point we dropped off the bags and then went down. We were in Old Town Alexandria, which feels like a place entirely out of place with where it is. Like I was walking up and down the downtown there, and we're very relatively close to Washington, D.C.
Across the river.
You can see the
Can't
Washington,
see
D.C.?
any of it. So I think if you go down to the
from
waterfront,
where we were.
right? If you go down to the waterfront during the day, certainly you could see things.
At night, across the way, you could also have seen it.
Yeah, but we couldn't because of just like these tree-lined streets and the large row houses and stuff that make up the downtown there. But to me, it felt like a place completely out of place with where we were in the world. Like because we get off of the highway and like 5 minutes later, we're just up and down this little downtown area, and it felt like we could have been hundreds of miles away from Washington, D.C. But
it's so funny.
There we were.
Because it feels very... It's because I'm familiar with it.
Well, you're familiar with where it is in relation to everything else, and you've been there.
It's right there.
Before, and to me, it was a new experience.
So, Bob, if you were blindfolded and taken there, you didn't drive there. Like, you couldn't, like, within 3 guesses, figure out that you were somewhere in Virginia and Alexandria, to be more precise?
I would have had no idea, yeah. I mean, the trees and the bushes might have given things away. I mean, it kept me in the zone 9 agricultural planting area or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's
it
beautiful.
Does feel incredibly Virginia.
It feels Virginia, and it also feels very quaint, without being run down or ancient. Really, I don't know. It's very nice. I'd like to go back there and spend more time there. Really, it was just
we will.
An hour.
Y'all
or so.
got there at 10. Did you guys have reservations for like a dinner or anything like that?
No, we're not that fancy. We just, knowing that there were going to be plenty of restaurants available for the choosing, and also Memorial Day weekend not being like a busy time to be in the general D.C. area, people tend to take off.
It's also nice when there's, like, we do so much making reservations when it's like a group of people because you have to. When it's just 2 people, I love that we don't have reservations. Like, we will just see. If there's no tables, we'll get a slice of pizza, whatever. I like not having plans when it's just the 2 of us.
Yeah.
Because, reservations would have just stressed y'all out because you guys showed up later than you expected.
It would have been a real bummer if we'd had reservations.
Oh, whatever. Just cancel them.
Yeah. Anyway, our activity, though, which I was sort of hesitant to talk about because it's...
I don't know
risque activity? What's going on?
No.
Okay.
No. So I've always thought of tattoos as being sort of violative of something that I have, like in a very Catholic sort of way, right?
I was about to ask, like, if this is a Catholic thing.
Right. The body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, according to Catholic lore. Which, of course, I've long since rejected. But like the underlying ethic or the warning against it, I think, stuck with me, and it didn't stick with me in like a dogmatic, this is a totally bullshit way, but like literally the underlying fundamental of desecrating the body, which is sort of the only thing that you have. You came into the world with it, and it's something to be sort of protected. And in some ways, it is who you are, but the fact that it wasn't chosen by you sort of makes it not yours in a way, or like not necessarily yours to fundamentally violate. And I know that sounds weird, probably, but I've had a slight stigma or taboo against the idea of getting a tattoo, and deeply buried. This despite the fact that I've long thought of the different tattoos that I would want to get were I to ever get one. I've never had a tattoo or really made any gestures in the direction of getting one. But this past weekend, we violated that taboo of mine, and I got my first tattoo.
You got a tattoo?
I did.
Look at that, like a tramp stamp or somewhere else.
Yes, exactly.
It is across my upper back. It is
kind of in the middle of your upper back.
Sort of in the middle of my upper back, yeah.
This is a tattoo that you thought of before. This wasn't like I'm going to decide at the last minute.
No,
which
not
specific
spur of
tattoo.
the moment at all. It's a play on a tattoo that I've long thought about getting. In the booklet for Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, the Smashing Pumpkins 1995 double record. On the Bullet with Butterfly Wings page of that booklet, there's an image of an hourglass with sort of stylized bat wings, and so it's like an hourglass flying away. And I've always liked that, and if I were to pick one of the drawings from that booklet, that would have been it. But I didn't want that exact tattoo. Like it's something of a cliche for Pumpkins fans to get a tattoo along those lines. And I didn't want the tattoo to just be about the fucking Smashing Pumpkins. Much as I love the Smashing Pumpkins, I'm not 17 any longer. I didn't want a Smashing Pumpkins tattoo. So I sort of redesigned it a little bit, and with the help of this wonderful tattoo artist in, where the hell were we? Sterling, Virginia.
Yeah.
She did a version of it that includes a little pink swirly thing, basically, that is meaningful to me in my artistic expression throughout much of the last 20 years. The Color Me Fuchsia concept has been with me for a very long time, and what that color represents, I will not explain if asked.
You got to read the
in
book.
A short little sentence, but to say the very least, it's all tied up in questions of time and the human will or the lack thereof, free will, and then also conversations about the sort of Clockwork Orange concept, the mechanized versus the natural, and to what degree is our reality a mechanized version of natural processes that we don't actually have any control over. So yeah, that was the idea behind the thing, and decided to just go ahead and do it. And it also ties into something that Lori was going to have tattooed upon her. So we have this sort of joint.
Mine's just a line.
Right.
Doesn't mean anything.
She just got a line.
Line looks fucking awesome.
I included her tattoo into my design as well, and it's just a nice little thing that, you know, we don't have a lot of stuff that's just us. You know, we didn't even really have a wedding.
We got those two
have
kids.
a wedding.
That's true. We did have the two kids.
Yes, but like, fuck the kids.
They're not even really ours.
And they're gonna be their own like they're not ours. They're their own. They are not mine.
Yeah. She takes none of the blame for anything that's going on with them. But anyway, that's what that was this weekend. That's why our dinner got pushed back, because it took fucking way longer than we thought it was going to take, which was foolish because like mine was a fairly large and intricate design, certainly relative to Lori's. Right now it's a little bit itchy and it's bothersome, but eventually.
How long is it expected to kind of?
It takes like 4 or 5 days to heal.
Well, and then it takes 6 months to really heal.
Right, but like the worst of it is less than a week in theory.
Are there some restrictions? You can't go like in a body of water and swim or something? Like you can.
I think I have, like, as long as like the first couple of weeks, yes, but like you don't want to expose it to sun anytime soon. But
you don't want to expose it to sun ever.
I'm not a big shirts off guy.
No one's ever
anyway,
going to see this tattoo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true.
People will see mine because it's awesome.
Did you guys seek out this particular tattoo artist?
Yeah, I found her on the internet.
Yeah, so once we figured out more or less what we were trying to do, which was largely like black and gray, not too much color work, and nothing that like looks animated or cheesy, because a lot of tattoos look very like cartoonish and cheesy to me, and that's not at all what I wanted. I wanted something.
Well, and mine is hard because it needs to be a straight line.
Yeah, and straight lines are difficult.
And there were some people that I reached out to in Richmond who were amazing, but they all are like, that is too geometric for me.
Okay.
Like to make these super precise straight lines, it's not for everyone. And she does a good job with that.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we'll throw her Instagram link in the show note if anybody wants to check out her stuff. Very nice little Vietnamese lady.
Beautiful.
Yeah, she's real cute.
So pretty.
She's like a decade maybe younger than us, I think.
Are you the squeamish sort, Bob? Did you handle all the
Bob
pricking?
did good.
I think I did fine. Like it's the feeling of it was very unpleasant. It doesn't feel good.
I like it.
it felt like I was being carved. Like it doesn't like, because when you think about what a tattoo needle is, it's like this little double needle that just sort of goes back and forth a bunch, right? But what it feels like is like she's dragging something through your skin, and it's not pleasant. And like the pain wasn't so bad for like the first hour. Like the pain never really bothered me, actually. Like the acute feeling of being carved up or stabbed was not the thing that was bothersome. What was bothersome was that 3.5 hours of basically holding the same position and being constantly uncomfortable, right? Because you don't ever really relax when that's going on. Like you can sort of, for a little while,
I fell asleep, I think.
Yeah, you can sort of get into a zone with it after a minute, but eventually, like, you start noticing, oh, my legs have been in the same position for fucking 3.5 hours now. My arms haven't really moved much for 3.5 hours, and it's not so much the pain as it is just an endurance test for your body to just continue doing this thing. And like, if I thought it was going to be like another hour, I was going to be like, I need 5 minutes to like stand up and walk around or something, so that we can, I can take a minute here.
Right, and if it were more complex, it would take that long, right? I do wonder, is there like an intermission factored in, like if it was like an 8-hour project?
Because she's the one working.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, as long as she can go, I also felt like, well, if she can keep going, who am I to complain?
She's the one working.
Because she was a fucking machine. Like, she set to work on Lori and didn't stop for about 2 straight hours. Like, just like straight through, working on Lori without stopping. Wow. And then took like 15 minutes in between Lori and I, mostly just like resetting all of her equipment. Like, not even really, like, just sort of cleaned up and cleaned everything and started over, and then took 5 minutes to go to the bathroom. But then she was back, and it was like, here we go. And it was 3.5 or 4 hours for me without stopping. So she passed the endurance test, and I wasn't going to I wasn't going to be the one who stopped things here.
But also, if it had been larger or taken longer, she would have probably wanted to do it in 2 different sessions.
Okay.
Like, they do that.
I don't know if I will become a person who like really wants more tattoos, but I did spend much of the time sitting there while getting carved up thinking, well, I could also do this other thing. Like, this isn't the end of the world. Maybe we do this. So I had 6 other ideas for more tattoos in the future. The good news is it's very expensive to get good tattoos done. So you can't really go entirely crazy with it.
Right. Also, not something you want to cut corners with either, right? So
no.
You do want to get quality tattoos.
No, you can get,
unless you're in prison or something. You know.
Right.
Yeah. It's very much that, like, fast, cheap, good, you pick 2.
Pick 2, yeah.
But yeah, a nice weekend for Lori and I, away from the kids. There was no baseball scheduled this weekend because of the Memorial Day holiday, so it felt like a good time to take a day and run away and do something for us, which I hear is important. I keep hearing in the culture that it's very important to focus on yourself every once in a while.
Yeah, very important.
I'm told over and over again. As a result of all of the baseball and the inward focus on myself and my temple of a body, that's the other thing before I move on here. There's something about being where I am at fucking middle age here. I don't talk about my life as some sort of a continuum because my consistent experience of being me is, of course, just being me now, right? So, like, there's not a lot of, like, well, me back then versus me in the future. It's like, no, like, there is no past, no future. Here we are, as I say. What else is there? The past is gone forever, never to repeat itself. The future is inevitable and unknowable at the exact same time. All we really have is the moment. But for whatever reason, something like this, a permanent change to my physical appearance in a way that is not, I can't do anything about, really, moving forward, perhaps has me reflecting on how I might have thought of this at times in the past, and
with judgment.
Not necessarily with judgment, although I have a good article to discuss later about judgment. there's probably an element of like coming to terms with the imperfectibility of the self that allowed me to just go ahead and do it, right? Like I've never, as I've said before on the show in a joking sort of manner many times, like I've spent a long time just utterly dismayed with and disgusted by my own physical presence in the world, right? Like a fat guy, out of shape or whatever. And I maintain that to this day, despite having sort of had a fairly radical transformation of the 2009 podcast in Bob versus the 2025 podcast in Bob in terms of my physical presence in the world, but still deeply uncomfortable largely with the way that I present here in the world, in the way that it is lacking in ways that I would prefer it to not be, perhaps. I'm talking, of course, about the size of my Johnson.
It's reasonable to feel that way for you.
At its core, obviously. But there's something about perhaps realizing that, like, there's never going to be a time when you are sufficiently satisfied with everything about the physical appearance that you're just gonna that you will have arrived, right? Like even the people who do approach something like their own version of perfectibility, whether it's like the fucking aging weirdo, the Brian Johnson fella, who's trying to stop the aging process and sort of perfect the human body in that way, or whether it's a bodybuilder or a supermodel or whatever. These are people who will constantly be down on themselves for failing to live up to whatever imagined perfection it is that they have in their minds. And I think that a lot of times people get these tattoos as a rebellion against their physical appearance, right? Like
people tend to tattoo parts of their body they don't like.
Right. And I think that one of the things that I've objected to about the way that people use tattoos, at least in the way that I've understood them to be used, is just that. Like people who are sort of calling attention to something in order to hide the attention that they don't like, right? Like similar to the kid who dresses in such a fashion as to call undue attention to themselves, right? Like or they wear provocative clothing or do provocative things to their hair or their fingernails or something, simply in order to call attention to.
You're gonna make fun of me anyway.
Themselves.
It might as well be the way that I pick.
Right. And approaching it from the opposite end of the spectrum there, I think that like having come to terms to some extent with the limits of my ability to tolerate my failings in various ways. Like, fuck it. Like, here we are. Like, what are we waiting for here? There's nothing more to figure out. There's nothing more to be done. So, like, if you want to do this thing, just go ahead and do the thing. And it felt like something I wanted to do. So
there does seem to be. There are many reasons, from what I gather, as to why people want to get tattoos. Because, like, you have some cultures that do this, right? The Polynesian sort, they have some tattoos over their shoulders.
Right.
You have others who they just turned 18, they're in Panama City, a little drunk, get a tattoo just flippantly. There are others where they're commemorating something, like somebody died. And, one of my friends actually got a tattoo of, like, close people in his orbit that died recently, and so like something like that, or it could be any other reason. I don't know if there's like one particular reason why people get a tattoo, though. No, probably not any one particular reason, but like I wouldn't object to somebody getting an in loving memory tattoo on their shoulder or whatever, any more than I would object to like you see like a Jeep Grand Cherokee and it says in loving memory in white stickers on the back of it. And it's like, so you got this because of the life insurance payout is what the in loving memory sticker tells me. And you're assuaging your guilt of getting a sweet new ride by putting in loving memory of whoever it was that died on the back of your car. Right.
That always feels tacky and weird to me. No judgment, of course.
No, yeah. The only...
Of course not.
To me, it's not tattoo versus no tattoo. To me, is all about placement, right? So, like, somebody having a tattoo on their back or like a small one like on their wrist is one thing. Having a tattoo on your face or your neck is something else, right?
Right. When have you ever seen someone with a face tattoo and thought that's a well-adjusted person who?
Right.
And people will complain about like, well, you can't discriminate in the workplace because of a tattoo. It's like, well, if they have half their face covered in ink, they experienced, at the very least, we can say they experienced a moment of instability at some point in the past, in a drastic sort of way that led to this result.
Right.
And like you would need to either have an extremely long conversation with that person, either to understand that moment of instability or to understand how far they've come.
Like your cousin.
Since then, in order to figure out, like, you know, if this is a person to be trusted with, you know, even like the cash
Petty
drawer
cash.
keys, you know, like, and that might be, maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's shitty, but like, that's the price of doing permanent change to your physical appearance in the world, you know, in a way that like people take to be drastic because it's fucking drastic. And you wouldn't have done the thing if not for some sort of drastic circumstance.
Right. I wonder if it's like a rejection of like society. Like I'm going to
some of it,
you know, like do a thing that I know is going to separate me from the masses and it's going to create obstacles in the future. Like I want to commit to that. Now.
Yeah, there are women who suffer sort of unspeakable crimes against their physical body and want to disfigure themselves in ways that they end up like they sort of rationalize as like I'm going to make myself unattractive in ways, right? Like whether that's through eating or harming themselves in various other ways. That's all obviously very sad. But still, like, you know, if you ended up with half your face or your neck tattooed, it's like, what happened to you is the question.
Right. And yeah, I don't know.
In this culture anyway,
yeah,
right? Like, in, you know.
But that's why I always kind of like go easy. Like, I don't know what caused to that, but like, it can't be from like a good place. I'm going to, you know, like, I mean, I'm not the one doing the hiring anyways, but like, I don't know what happened there, but like, you have committed to this. Right. And good luck with that.
Right. It's a flag. Not necessarily a red flag, usually a red flag, but it's a flag. You're the one waving it on your face.
Right. It sometimes works, you know, like there are like some musical types, artists that somehow became known, like some rappers, where they just have all this stuff. It's basically like a high wire act. You can't do anything else. Like you can't go from
like
this
the
to
Jelly
selling
Roll
homes.
and that Post Malone, both heavily tattooed facially.
Right. And it's not hurting their career, right? Nobody's like, I'm not listening to this music. Look at the tattoos. Like, so it's fine for them. But like, if you're trying to get like a job at a bank or become a real estate, you know, agent, good luck.
Right. Anyway, I figure if at 42 I end up regretting it in some, like it's one thing to know, like at fucking 20, you probably end up regretting almost everything that you chose at 20 years old.
We met when we were 20.
Except, of course, your choice in life partner. But like if I end up regretting it at 80 that I did this at 42, it's like, okay, well, at least that's entirely on me, like a knowable me,
right?
Like not the idiot 20-year-old, certainly.
Right.
But anyway,
good for you.
Enough about us. Let's talk about the awful world instead. I've paid almost no attention to the news outside of like reading headlines on my phone and the occasional article, and I didn't even watch the Sunday shows this weekend because we had to get in the car and come back for All-Star practice. Like I cannot stress how short a trip away from our baseball responsibilities was this tattooing trip. So I largely don't have anything intelligent to say about the stuff that's gone on in the world for the last week or so, and maybe it's a function of only sort of sampling it with a butter knife scraped across the top of the news here. But like, so Trump acknowledged that fucking Putin is a crazy war criminal who's going to do what he wants to do with Ukraine after all, as it turns out. Like, okay, right. Well, surprise, surprise, Trump had an idea about the world. It turned out to be wrong, and people are going to suffer because of it. Yeah, that's worth talking about, right. I guess. The thing that happened with the president of South Africa in the Oval Office last week, where what's the dude? Ramaphosa, I think, is the guy's name. shows up and then gets berated for 45 minutes and shown video of what is purported to be a white genocide happening in his country. And the problem with the narrative is that the only thing that the president of South Africa can say is basically, yeah, crime is really, really bad in my country. I promise.
Right.
It's not unduly directed at the white people. Like, people are dying like crazy as a result of violent crime in my country. But it's the fine kind of dying and violent crime. And in fact, it still disproportionately impacts the black population, if you want to be particular about it. But, like, that's not much of a defense for the president of a country to be able to offer.
Right. It's all bad, Mr. President. It's not just bad for them.
Right. It's not just bad for the – and then so you're telling me that Donald Trump has wrong ideas about the world and then has somebody like Stephen Miller help him implement what is effectively just a giant trolling operation in order to make people mad when he brings 50 white people from South Africa to the United States as genocide refugees, and then gets to do the sea lion thing where it's like, hey, what, you got a problem? We're accepting refugees. I thought you liberals wanted us to accept refugees. And that's the way that we're going to run the federal government, run the White House. Like, it's just kind of like so patently shameful that it's not even worth responding to.
How many of these head of state ambushes have there been now? Like, I mean, it seems like it's a recurring thing. Like, I mean, it happened with Ukraine and then Canada. Now this guy, I don't know if there's some that I'm missing, but it seems like it's like a common thing where he'll bring people over and he'll have like his Vance and Rubios just kind of idly sitting by. And it's just like this, basically you have to kind of get ready for the ambush. It's like, it almost seems like future guests of the White House will have to kind of just assume that something like that is going to happen. Like, what sort of local thing is gaining traction in right of center social media? Like, he's probably going to bring that up. Let's get ahead of it and come up with some talking points.
And purely as a display of of Trump power, as though that's as though he gets off on it. Which he clearly does. Right.
Because basically it's like you have to come. Like, I mean, all these countries have business before the U.S. or they need something, and so you have to show up. You can't decline an invite.
Right. And then the breaking news from earlier today about another Trump pardon, where this guy who cheated on his taxes for years and like stole millions of dollars from his own employees and was convicted, gets a pardon because his mom was a big-time Trump campaign contributor who fairly recently attended a $1 million a plate fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago, and that helped finally grease the skids so that shortly before he was about to have to pay like tens of millions of dollars in restitution and then serve an 18-month jail sentence, he gets off scot-free with a full and unconditional pardon simply because of his mother's connections to the Trump presidency, putting sort of a bow on a conversation that's been going on in the news media for the last week or so about just how corrupt this presidency is relative to other presidencies. We have the Qataris donated that jet or gave that jet to the United States Air Force to be turned into Air Force One. That went through last week, I believe. And then we have all of the meme coin stuff where they had that dinner where the top holders of the Trump meme coin got to just come have dinner at the White House. We're at the Trump golf course here in Virginia before heading over to the White House for a special tour or something like that. The corruption is at a level that does not appear to be replicated previously in United States history, and no one seems to fucking care. And anytime somebody asks a Republican member of Congress about it, like Mike Johnson, he's like, oh, you think that Donald Trump, who gave up a life of impossible lavishness and luxury to serve the American people, is benefiting from this president? Like he takes it as an article of faith that Donald Trump has made tremendous personal sacrifice in a monetary way in order to serve his country and to help the American people, and will not accept it. Will brook no dissent on that. He treats it as pure media disinformation that anything like the graft or corruption is going on, and it's such a loser's game to complain about it because none of them fucking care.
Did you see that there's a dirty Culpeper politician that's getting pardoned?
No, I don't think I did.
Fucking Culpeper.
No.
Is it the reality stars, the people that committed? There was like that couple that just got pardoned also.
No, it's some guy.
Chesley something. Yeah.
I don't know. I Google Culpeper Trump pardon. Only 2 P's in Culpeper, not 3. You'd think there'd be 3.
Oh, you'd think so too. You know, anything a president does, like, and they get away with it, like it sets a precedent. No matter what future presidents say, they'll always want that authority or that power. I do wonder when it comes to all of these pardons and commutations. I mean, just the January 6th people alone, I mean, put Trump's number very high. By the time he's done in 4 years, this will be like just a record for the number of people. Just based on, I'm just assuming the next 3 years is going to be more of this. I do wonder if future presidents will just be similarly shameless in, you know,
right. And the cover for it is that he's just righting the wrongs of a weaponized judicial system of a weaponized Justice Department under Joe Biden, and it's just total fucking bullshit. Like the guy that he pardoned, whose mommy went to Mar-a-Lago for the $1 million a plate fundraiser, just didn't pay employment taxes on his employees for like 5 years and pocketed the money and like bought yachts with it and stuff. Right? Like he was prosecuted because he committed tax fraud to the tune of millions and millions of dollars over the course of many years, not because his family has conservative politics. Right? This was not a weaponization of the Justice Department. In fact, all of these pardons have been a weaponization of a politicization of the presidential pardon power in a way that is unrecognizable through much of modern history, with the exception of the end of the Biden presidency.
Right, yes.
And a couple of other examples you can point to through the years. Right.
And I do wonder, like, if this all but assures that by the time Trump is done, like when he's like a lame duck and at the end of 28 into 29, preemptive pardons for just about everybody, including people that may have committed some financial crimes in the last few years, you know, just to get ahead of it.
Of course. His entire family, any loyal soldiers who have stuck with him through the 4 years of the presidency, and don't rule out, like, the press secretary getting it, like just weird ones, right? Because they will say, in order to hide the crimes of the Trump children or whoever else in their orbit are actually committing crimes, they will throw in like Caroline Leavitt, just because, like, hey, we put Caroline on there because she's going to be a target of the next, even though she certainly wouldn't be, right? It's like, well, but we got to pardon everybody because they're going to come after us,
right?
Yeah, I think that's almost certain,
and also a self-pardon, right?
Yes, unless J.D. Vance or some other Trump-sanctioned surrogate is the president-elect. If there's a Democrat elected, then maybe not. But
that's true.
But yeah, all right. So basically, my summary of the news of the last week to 10 days is: why would we bother fucking talking about this stuff? It's all the same stuff.
That's what I've been saying.
And like each new fresh outrage just makes me feel like more of a dumbass for fucking caring in the first place. And like until something breaks in the Republican swamp, the fever dream of Trumpism, and people start to turn against him in a meaningful way, none of it matters. Right. And maybe that happens with the midterms, and that when they lose power and they realize that he's not going to have a stranglehold on this party forever, as the lame duck term continues to wind down.
I don't know. Lame dirt is good.
I wouldn't hold my breath on it, probably. I did want to talk about, is this an expert say? Let me see if this was an expert. No, this was not an expert say. But this is an article in the New York Times from the wellness section, which if you're ever looking for something to scoff at, you can head to the New York Times wellness section. How to stop being so judgy, and here's what you should do instead. This is by someone named Jancy Dunn, And it starts, when my daughter was 3, she bolted while I was paying for groceries at the supermarket. I was fumbling for my credit card and didn't notice. For 20 long minutes, I ran up and down the street shouting her name. Some people helped me look for her. Others asked me how I'd let this happen. When I finally found her, she'd walked home across 7 city blocks. I vowed never to judge anyone ever again. That, of course, didn't last very long. I will pause in my recitation of this article to say, maybe a little bit of self-reflective judgment on your own parenting would have been helpful here rather than total absolution. Because if your 3-year-old can bolt so quickly away from you while you're looking for a credit card and you are unable to locate her, like within seconds, then I don't believe, like I sort of don't believe all of the facts of the anecdote as they're being relayed to me. Like there's something else going on here. You were fucking around on your phone. You were otherwise distracted. Maybe the person behind the register there was cute and you were having a flirt and you didn't realize that the kid had fucked off. Like there's something else going on here.
Sounds a lot like judgment.
Well, Bob is not.
I'm not here to not judge. Like
Bob
this,
is the
what are we
judgy
talking-
one.
this is that, by the way, that's not a judgment. Those are all just observations. The facts here don't entirely add up.
The cute person is an observation, the made-up scenario.
No, I'm observing potential alternatives. We pass back to the article. We pass judgment all the time, and sometimes we don't realize we've done it. Research suggests that when people see a new face, their brains decide whether that person is attractive and trustworthy within 1/10 of a second. If that's true, you are fighting a losing battle, lady. Right? Like there's no interrupting that process if it's happening in 1/10 of a second. Anyway, she goes on to ask various, maybe this is sort of an expert say, she goes on to ask various experts for advice on how to catch yourself when you're being overly judgmental and what to do instead. Notice when you're judging. Slow down and check in. Explore your reaction. The next time you're being judgmental, turn the lens on yourself, says Erica Schwartzberg, a psychotherapist in New York City, and figure out what is prompting these feelings. Schwartzberg, for example, said that she didn't drink alcohol anymore and sometimes found herself judging others' drinking habits. I'll think, why do they need that third drink? That seems messy. When I pause, I realize this judgment isn't about them, it's about me. Watching someone else drink freely can bring stuff up and make me feel separate. Maybe you're just noticing that the person is being a fucking lush in public, and there's nothing wrong with noticing that. Swap judgment for curiosity and empathy. I'm going to read the rest of this article in whole. When you're tempted to judge someone harshly, try to summon empathy for the person and to get curious about their circumstances, Dr. Hafiz said. Question instead of presume. She recommended asking yourself, what might this person be going through? What might you be overlooking? Curiosity can help develop compassion. For example, instead of assuming that a colleague who fails to meet deadlines is careless, question whether there are hidden factors influencing their behavior, like personal challenges. When you're curious instead of judgmental, Schwartzberg added, you make room for the complexity that lives in all of us, including ourselves. I still have to check myself when I have the gavel out. I was at my kid's band performance recently, and I was irritated by the row of parents in front of me. All of them have been on their phones the whole time, I whispered to my friend. Why bother coming? Who cares? She whispered back. Correct. End of article recitation. Actually, you're noticing that the row of parents in front of you are dedicating all of their attention to the supercomputers that should be tucked safely in their pockets, instead of on their children's performance of the musical instrument on the stage, is a good thing to notice, and their behavior is worthy of criticism. And who cares should be all of our concern as a society concerned with where we direct our attention and why we feel so compelled to look at the stupid fucking phone instead of our children who are doing something on stage that is worthy of our attention.
Right.
It is not not wrong to judge that in that moment, to judge not necessarily the individual, but to take a critical eye towards a culture that permits such a thing to continue happening.
But most people are judging the individual.
Right. I'm very selfish when it comes to judging people. Like if you're like in the way, like if there are like 5 of you walking down a sidewalk and I can't get past you, or at some choke point, like in front of a door, or you're just hogging an aisle at the grocery store, things that inconvenience me, a lot of judgment. Things that don't involve me, almost no judgment. Like usually, like what this article describes is basically how I am. I'm like, I wonder what's going on with that person. So, like what would get them to this point, instead of saying like, oh, look at this dum-dum, right? I mean, there are dum-dums out there, but they can't all be. My whole life can't be surrounded by dum-dums, right? So there's got to be somebody who's just having a bad day. Yeah. I would have to think that, like, it's just
right. It's no way to go through life constantly convinced that you're surrounded by dum-dums in your lingo there. And I agree. Empathy is useful, and curiosity about other people's circumstances is a very good trait to have. But also, like, as part of one's curiosity about the world is coming to certain determinative outcomes about the way the world is and the ways in which it can be improved, and like noticing that everybody in this fucking middle school gymnasium is looking at their fucking phones instead of appreciating the thing that's happening on the stage it's worth thinking about, I think, right? Like, get off your fucking phone. That's fine to have that reaction,
right? Yeah, especially, if somebody's doing something like that that's being disruptive, I think that's different. What do you call when you judge, like, let's say you're on a subway station, just taking a ride somewhere, and a homeless person, like somebody's begging for money, is in your train, like your particular train. Like you feel, like that empathy we talked about a second ago, that goes out the window for me. I'm just like, oh, fuck, now I have to deal with this person, right? There's some judgment there.
But you're not judging them. You're just annoyed. There's a huge difference.
It's more annoyed. Okay. So I'm
you
not
are
judging
annoyed.
Them. Okay.
They're not saying don't be annoyed. They're saying don't think less of people.
Okay. There we go.
Which is what, it's like the number one problem that stylists that I work with have is a complete lack of empathy with it's because they're young.
Yeah.
And also probably worse because it's getting worse. But like, just because someone comes in a bad mood doesn't mean they're a bitch. It means there's something going on in their life. You know how you have a life? So does that person. Right now, it's your job to fix their problem. Sorry, choose a different job if you don't like that job.
Right.
It's funny.
It sucks.
You mentioned the homeless thing, somebody getting on your train or on your bus or whatever, and knowing that you might have an interaction coming that you would prefer not to have, right? My interaction with that population in this town is largely relegated, because we don't go out much, and there are homeless folks downtown, certainly, that you would run into, like in any other downtown. But it's largely limited to, like, highway,
side of the road,
on off ramps, and the median at popular intersections around town, right? And like, I very rarely have cash, like too much cash. Like, maybe I have a couple $100 in 20s or something in my pocket for some reason, but like, it's not like I'm always walking around with loose cash, like $6, $5, $7, $12 or whatever, where it's like, it's no skin off my back to give a couple of dollars to somebody if somebody's hand comes out. So like, you pull up to the traffic light or leave the highway, and you're getting on the regular road there at the on-ramp, off-ramp, and now you're in a situation where if you make eye contact with this person, you're going to have some sort of an interaction, right? And all of my human instinct, in terms of my good person instinct, is there's a human being on the side of the road. Even if I know I can't or won't give them cash out of my pocket, it is human to look at them in the eye and acknowledge their existence.
Right.
But also, I know through experience with some of them, is if you make that eye contact, the expectation is now in their head that something positive and from a monetary perspective is going to happen for them, right? And so now it becomes sort of an interaction that I don't want to have. And so you find yourself busying yourself with the controls on the radio or the air conditioning, or
suddenly
just
busy. Yes,
You have a supercomputer in your pocket.
or just like trying to be as oblivious to the world around you as possible, right? Just sort of like staring up at the sky, ignoring that there's a human being who's asking for your help off to the side. And then like, because when you do make eye contact with them, not all of them to be clear, but like the ones that, like one in particular that I've noticed, it's like he is the one who does all of the judgment when you don't fork over the dollars. Like he becomes aggressively exasperated at what's happening here. Right. It's like, look, man, I can't solve any of your problems, including the very small problem of you wanting $5 from my pocket, right? Like, it's just not in the cards at the moment. So, like, what do you want from me, really? Like, what? How can I? And so then you see him growing even increasingly exasperated out of the corner of your eye as he realizes that he's not going to get the eye contact that he so desires. It's like, I don't know what to tell you, man.
Right. It is interesting that the human gesture of just mere acknowledgement, that signal has been kind of superseded by like, oh, I got a live one. Basically, you know, from the vantage point of the person seeking the money, most people are averting their gaze, right? So like basically you have like nothing happening, and then somebody looks at you, you think like, you know, like a fisherman, we got a live one, you know. Because you're one of the rare few who looked in. How do
you win in that case? Like, you cannot. Yeah. And so I end up having nothing but antipathy for the person who's there on the side of the road. But that's out of a sense. Like, but that antipathy grows out of a guilt and an empathy that I have in the first place. It's not fucking fair. Right.
Basically, it's like, say, look at what you're making me do. Like, I'm a good person enough to be like an asshole just to get by this whole transaction. It fucking sucks.
Yeah. Oh, anyway. Judgment is fine and good and makes the world a better place for the most part when deployed sparingly and appropriately.
Yes.
And who gets to decide that?
I don't know, but the New York Times doesn't need to tell me that I need to stop being so fucking judgy. That's for goddamn sure. All right. Quickly on an actual expert's say. This is from NPR, where all of the best experts say come from. All right. A video of the French president's wife shoving him went viral.
Oh, I heard about this.
Here's why it matters. First, I'm going to show you the video, Abe.
Yeah, I heard about this today.
They try to pass it off as something playful, right?
It's such like it's so clearly like it reads like a moment from The Office or something.
Yeah,
like,
how do you lose your situational awareness if you're the president there? How do you not know, like, the door just opened, like there's all this air coming, and you say, oh shit.
Very, very good. It's also not clear, like, to me, their explanation / rationalization of the moment kind of checks out for me. Like, he very much appears to possibly be having a jovial and joking or teasing moment, or like you can't quite see it, but like it wouldn't surprise me, like, because the look on his face is one of
he doesn't look mad.
He doesn't look mad. It's one of teasing to me, and then he makes a sort of surprised face when she shoves two hands in his face and gives him a shove. But it's also not like he's not about to have a violent counter reaction to it either. Right. So like to me, it's plausible that this was just sort of a joking moment between spouses that got taken out of context in some way just by virtue of the fact of when the door opened. Right.
I mean, it's an awkward look, and this was a teacher-pupil situation at one point, wasn't it?
Apparently.
Yeah, she's like 2 decades plus older than him.
Yep.
He was 15 years old when she was his teacher.
Right.
And he like vowed to marry her one day or something, and then came back and did so.
Well, maybe that was he was on the business end of a wrong answer to a pop quiz, like 30
Yeah, perhaps. Whatever gets it going. I mean, I'm sure.
Who are we to judge?
That's right. That's not my anti-judging. You know me. This is from the NPR write-up of this story. And the reason that it came up is because I frequently go to npr.org and I do a search for experts say. And there's a quote here. In today's digital environment, I think it is not a question of whether it goes viral. It's to what ends people want to use that video for, this expert said. In this case, Macron and other disinformation experts say Russia is seizing the moment to try to make him look weak. Now, end quote here, is President of France, Emmanuel Macron, a disinformation expert?
Yes.
By virtue of what? By virtue of being the victim of what he claims to be disinformation? And if we are stooping so low as to call the president of France a disinformation expert, we have truly started scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of what we're willing to call expertise.
That's a weird claim by the NPR folks.
Right. Also, and this gets into larger questions perhaps, but NPR write-up goes on to cite multiple other recent instances of Russian media and other large media organizations pushing what they claim to be disinformation, whether that's about like a meeting between Macron and Erdogan at some fucking summit. There was this handshake between Erdogan and Macron, which looks awkward when viewed without any of the context. Like he's just kind of holding his middle finger there and won't let go as Macron just stands there and they're having some brief conversation. And Macron appears to be like trying to take his hand back for a second. But that video was cycled or circulated as something, right? As like Macron exhibiting weakness in the face of this strongman Erdogan. And then also like some picture was circulated saying that he was doing all sorts of drugs when in fact it was just like a napkin on the table. So it shouldn't have been any sort of big deal. And the article wraps up. It's not unusual for Russia to target Western leaders in this way, but Macron's prominence and his advocacy role in NATO make him target number one. Every moment Macron and his team have to spend defending against these kinds of attacks is a moment that is keeping them away from keeping the West together. I think we're seeing a change in what has been decades of a status quo that favored the West, and Russia and China and other countries that stand in opposition to the West and to NATO are looking to chip away at what remains of those traditions and those standards. And these incremental attacks on leaders like Macron, who are trying to put their finger in the dam, as it were, and hold the West together, these attacks are going to continue, and they're going to continue to work to undermine his legitimacy. So somehow, the circulation of a video of Emmanuel Macron getting sort of pushed lightly in the face by his old lady, and then him having to go in front of the cameras and say, look, it wasn't what it appeared to be. Right. It was just a joking moment between spouses. That somehow undermines Macron's legitimacy and therefore also the global West. Right? Like somehow the stakes have gone from an embarrassing moment for the incredibly powerful leader of one of the largest and most powerful countries on earth in terms of their nuclear arsenal and their economy, right? To now he's a victim of disinformation that is going to somehow undermine Western civilization, and Russia and China are getting away with it. Right. And it's like, maybe actually no one fucking cares. Right. Maybe it's just a weird moment that a politician has to deal with. It is a normal course of events. It's not really disinformation because you can show that video to 1,000 people and 500 people will say, oh, man, he really took a hard one from the old lady. He was probably porking the stewardess, and then she found out, right? Like, that's the half of the people's normal reaction is going to be that, and the other half of the people are going to be like, oh, I'm sure it was nothing.
Right.
I'm sure that this was blown up. And it won't affect anything about geopolitics whatsoever. None of it actually fucking matters. And, like, turning it into this big civilizational fight between Russia and China and the West is fairly ridiculous in my estimation.
You know, I think a distinction should be made between made up content that's disseminated and spread for whatever reason and something that actually happened that people purposed to their own end, right? So if something actually happened, you have to live with it. So if somebody interprets what actually happened in a disparaging way, that's entirely different than just making something altogether, like a video that's not actually real or stitching together two separate scenes or doing whatever manipulation to give the false impression. But if a president is going up the stairs and they fall, that's like an embarrassing look, right? It makes the person look feeble, right? But it actually happens, right? You have to live with that.
And it's not disinformation to show it to somebody 1,000 fucking times.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah. And so to say to kind of lump that with actual disinformation, or at least the way that I always understood to be disinformation, you're making something up and you're persuading people to believe in that made up thing, right? This is not that. This
is just people offering a narrative that is counter to what you believe to be the truth about reality, right? And that's just the way the world has been for as long as people have whispered in other people's ears. Right. For as long as the printed word has existed, for as long as media, as can be loosely understood as possible, has existed, there have been people who tell lies about the world or who tell different stories about the world, stories that are counter to what you would prefer to be the story about the world. And it's not an attempt to undermine civilization. It's just that there are people who have different ideas about the world, and we sort of have to live with that fact.
Right. And I thought lessons were learned from the pandemic, but this is awfully reminiscent of that era where something actually happened. Let's say the vaccine did not prove as effective as once hoped, or if some remedy that thought would work did not work. Something actually happened, but it runs counter to whatever goal that you want. You going through the pandemic, you wanted to believe certain things that social distancing worked. The vaccine would be 95% effective. All of these other things, right? And then if something showed that was not true, it's not 95%, it's 80% or something like that, right? There was this effort to kind of minimize that reality, right? Because it kind of it plays into the hands of your adversary, right? So if the other side can use it for some good, you have to stand in opposition to that, even though it's what happened, right? So they're doing a similar thing here, where just because something you want the Western leaders like a Macron to be projected as strong, and if he's getting smacked about the face by his wife, he looks weak, right? And so that goes against what you want, and so you're standing in opposition to the other side who's using it to discredit Macron, right? It's this weird thing. It didn't work the first time because it sowed doubt and people lost trust in the public institutions.
Right, because we can't know.
Right.
You won't know if Macron and his wife were having a private joking moment and this is just how they relate to each other and it was just an awkward thing caught on camera that is perfectly... Or if he was fucking banging the flight attendant.
Right, because it's not 0% that it's...
It could be any of a million fucking things. And it might well be disinformation out of the mouth mouth of Emmanuel Macron that he was just having a private joking moment with his wife, and this is just their the way that their relationship is. Like we literally do not know that.
Right.
And so to say that one of these things is disinformation and the other one is just the thing that Emmanuel Macron is telling us is what happened, and like, well, you be the judge of whether or not Emmanuel Macron is telling the truth. But what we know is that this is disinformation on this other hand. Like, you are still tipping the scales, whether you realize
also,
it or not.
like, not only are you taking the word of Macron, who would want to the whatever he said to be true, because otherwise it would look bad on him. Like, also giving him the title of being like a disinformation expert. He's the one that could possibly be dishing the disinformation, but they're treated as experts.
Right. Speaking briefly of what you said, how this ties back into COVID. Earlier today, it was announced that RFK Jr. said that they would no longer recommend that healthy young children and pregnant women get the COVID vaccine. It would still be available to people with comorbidities or what have you, people who are otherwise potentially vulnerable to the thing. But the CDC recommendations would no longer include that young, healthy children be required or recommended to get the COVID vaccine. And whatever. It's not terribly interesting to me one way or another. The thing that jumped out was towards the end of the article. There was a claim. One of the last question that they asked is a very long article, but it's what's the risk of long COVID is the subhead to the last couple paragraphs of this article. Estimates of long COVID among children vary widely. But even at the lower end, studies show that around 1% of children in the United States, or roughly 1 million children, have ever had long COVID, broadly defined as symptoms that persist or emerge at least 3 months after an infection. These include many children who had mild or asymptomatic infections. That struck me as such an absurdity that they're going to claim that 1 million U.S. children have long COVID. And I clicked through, and it was a John Hopkins study or something like that. It doesn't matter. I'll make sure that the link is in the show note for anybody who cares to look at it. But if we're going to call long COVID essentially anybody who continues to experience or experiences symptoms of a respiratory virus months after they've had that respiratory virus, that's just what it means to get a respiratory virus, right? Like, anytime you have a respiratory virus and then a month later you experience fatigue, we're going to say that's a symptom of the respiratory virus that you had a month ago, or you experience shortness of breath 6 weeks later. Like, okay, maybe, but like, what when you say that 1 million United States children had long COVID, it strikes me as just such a patent absurdity that it makes me question everything else in the article. Right? Like and I know that they're just doing their best. I know that they don't even imagine themselves to be telling noble lies. They think they're just reporting the bare facts. But when the bare facts have been weaponized or manipulated in such a way as to achieve desired outcomes for sort of one side or another, it fucking feels manipulative.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm being sold a bill of goods here, and it makes me want to reject the entire fucking thing. And maybe that makes me a fucking like macho Joe Rogan type,
right?
And like suddenly now I'm a Maha RFK Jr. supporter. No, I continue to be capable of thinking for myself in these regards. But like, also we should recognize that like the idea that there are 1 million children running around with long COVID, as though that means something, right? Like, because maybe it is the case that this survey showed that 1% of United States children experienced respiratory disease symptoms in the 3 or 6 months after they had a respiratory illness.
Right.
Okay, if that's what we're going to call long COVID, fucking sure, that's long COVID. But also I've spent the last 5 years hearing about how long COVID is this debilitating thing that requires people to like not go to school or work anymore because they can't function as normal human beings because of the impenetrable brain fog and the exhaustion that they experience all the time. Not just they experienced fatigue at some point 3 months after they had the virus.
I imagine that's how it's commonly understood, right? Long COVID. Like, I think most people would not think just having some recurring thing like a month later would be long COVID. It's like based on all the descriptions and all these stories you hear.
No, it's like somebody who had the flu, and then you're like, man, I'm still kind of feeling this thing 6 weeks later. It's like, yeah, man, fucking flu will really fuck you up.
Or like the people like Howard had a heart thing.
Yeah, fucking you can be affected by illness in that way. Whatever.
Yeah, but it's not that number that they're citing.
Right. It's not that number. Anyway, I also wanted to talk about AI stuff, but I guess it's probably too late to start getting into that at this point.
It's quite late.
There was an article in, I think it was New York Magazine. I'll make sure that there's a link in the show note to it at the website. You can easily find it, but you cannot as easily find the archive version of it, which allows you to read it without being a subscriber. So I will cheat the system in that way.
I thought we weren't going to talk about this.
I think we can do it very quickly. Everyone is cheating their way through college. ChatGPT has unraveled the entire academic project, and it tells a number of different anecdotes about people and college students and their experience with using various chatbots to complete college assignments. And one of them, the lead anecdote, is someone utterly shameless about his use of the robots to get his way through classes. When he started at Columbia as a sophomore this past September, he didn't worry much about academics or his GPA. Most assignments in college are not relevant, he told me. They're hackable by AI, and I had just no interest in doing them. While other new students fretted over the university's rigorous core curriculum, described by the school as intellectually expansive and personally transformative, Lee used AI to breeze through with minimal effort. When I asked him why he had gone through so much trouble to get to an Ivy League university only to offload all of the learning to a robot, he said, "It's the best place to meet your co-founder and your wife." And the article is a lengthy one, and it, like I said, chronicles the adventures of numerous undergraduates and also their teachers talking about how they use and try to combat the use of artificial intelligence when doing homework and taking tests and stuff. And it sort of comes down to what is a liberal arts education and what is the value of a liberal arts education if you can just type into ChatGPT, hey,
one-word answer for what it is.
Write me an essay about this book or this essay that I read, and dumb it down a little bit so it seems like a dummy might have done it, so that I can get a B+ on my thing and it doesn't sound like a robot did it.
Right.
And you can sort of coast through much of your core curriculum and perhaps even more than that just by cheating. And like, what is the solution to that? And what does it mean?
Sounds like we should just have the robots do college.
And also, because what does it mean to create art in a world in which I can go jump on ChatGPT and have it spit out 1,000 different potential plots at any time, and then choose one of those plots and have the AI write the fucking story?
Right.
And sure, I can direct the prompt and I can do my edits or whatever, but how is that me? In what way is that an authentic artistic expression, and does that fucking matter? And to the average college student who's just trying to make sure they don't flunk the fuck out and upset their parents and waste all of their parents' money, who doesn't really think of it in terms, who hasn't figured out anything like an identity or a sense of personal pride here, of course they're going to fucking cheat. The overwhelming majority of them certainly are.
I should have the robot write that break stuff parody for me.
Yeah.
How do I get it to do that?
this seems like it's going to be, as far as solutions, Bob, this seems like one of those like fight fire with water things. So like the problem is that these ChatGPT and AI tools, what they can do is, or what they have done is render the standard ways of measuring what someone knows, which is like through the test and the essays and all that stuff. It has rendered those measurements like not reliable, right? Unreliable, right? So basically, you can no longer use those things to determine whether or not somebody understands the content in your syllabus, right? So you have to figure out how else to do that. I mean, to
oral exams only.
Right. So basically, yeah. So there's some sort of low-tech knowledge check, right? Some sort of like, this is not something you're going to have your AI spit out back at me. This is something you're going to write longhand and explain that you understand. And maybe just...
Right, except I agree with you, but the incentives for that mean that we're going to have to fail children who are paying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year to go to our school.
Right.
The school has no interest whatsoever in doing that.
Right. And also, the thing is, and I think that's probably why there's not going to be an answer to this problem, because it's not really a problem. Like that person said, in many ways, school is like a networking opportunity.
It's networking.
Right?
It's all it's for.
So the networking opportunities are still there, right?
But that's a highly cynical approach to education. I got a great deal out of my liberal arts education.
You're like the only person I've ever met who, I mean, I guess Julia too, but like these fucking people go to college because they don't know they don't have to. They don't learn anything except how to do college, and then they come into the world unable to cope with anything.
And
it's complete bullshit. It is complete bullshit for the majority of people, and it has been for, 50 years. However, I don't know when that started. It didn't start that way, but it's that way now. It's bullshit.
Yeah, and a lot of the world is simply about who you know, and a lot of college is simply about building those relationships and making sure that you know the right people.
Yeah, and that and the money and the amount of money, it's not exactly dollars, but like, paying for a Harvard degree is more prestigious than paying for another diploma, right? So like depending
on
who
you meet there.
Yeah, and who you meet there.
Matters.
So like the class, the people that you're associating with. But on the upside, Bob, like if you want to learn, right, you can still go and learn all that material, right? You just don't use the AI tools. Like do it that people...
Right, but what average fucking 19-year-old is going to be in that... I wasn't prepared at 19 to figure it out, or at 18. Like I sincerely wish that I had taken 2 or 3 years and not gone to school.
Yeah,
I would have gotten...
we do the whole thing wrong.
Much more out of college if I had approached it as I was approaching it in the last years that I was taking classes there, which is like with genuine curiosity and desire to figure stuff out, like rather than just sort of out of obligation.
No, if we're going to do college and you're going to do a liberal arts education, it should just be what they do is at St. John's, where they read just Newton and the philosophers and just original. Is it St. John's?
I don't know. Who doesn't?
It's in Annapolis. And it's just like old school, and everything is a class discussion.
Yeah, like a truly classical education would be.
Yeah, that's it, but that's not what college is, and it hasn't been for who knows how long.
And also, it's
just been a giant pile of expensive shit.
Right, and to be fair, for many students, school is transactional. I'm going to go there just so I can have a better job and get more money. Like I don't care about what I'm learning. But I need to learn it so I can get a degree, so I can get a job that pays well, so I can go travel around the world.
Right. It's not just a college problem either. It's also going to be a high school problem, increasingly so, right? Like all of this stuff can be achieved by high school students as well. And the much sort of larger conversation is, what does it mean if our most educated elite class of people, and I'm not just talking about the Ivies here. I'm talking about like the 40% of people who graduate from college and go into the professional workforce, farm out most of their cognitive load to the fucking robots.
Right.
And it's just robots talking to robots all of the time.
It means we cut out the middleman and just have the robots do the work for us.
I mean, maybe that's, where we're headed. Like maybe we're not very efficient in processing information, and we devised this machine that could do the thinking for us, and we could just do whatever else there is to do. No more thinking.
Yeah, it's a very depressing outcome that you're describing.
The transition period is going to be rough, Bob, but I mean, on the other side of it, it'll be pretty nice.
I mean, one can argue that, like, the extent to which we have farmed things out has led to us playing fucking stupid Candy Crush games on our phones and watching TikToks. I mean, this girl that they interviewed in this article talks about, like, it's really hard for me to focus on anything because I've spent 4 hours looking at TikTok today. Like, well, yeah, like, you should probably don't consider TikTok part of, like, your day, right?
Yeah,
like,
but in their defense, I think that especially for the kids that came after, like these kids that are coming up now, their whole lives have been this, right? So like, I think this is not dissimilar to like smoking, right? So it's like, it's probably as addictive as that to them, right? So like, it sucks that they're in that loop where they can't get out of this attention destroying machine. But like, I imagine the impulse to use it is like smoking a cigarette, like if you're like 3 packs a day type.
I'm sure, and especially more so because of the social aspect of it, right? Like all of your social interaction happens on there as well,
right?
I mean,
but at least it doesn't cause cancer.
Yeah, probably. Would you rather have cancer or like a complete inability to form a coherent thought? Because to me, I like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other in that case.
I wonder in the next 20 years if it's going to be deemed like cruel and unusual punishment to put like somebody in like isolation from technology, because like your brain will be like in withdrawals. Like you need like that activity. Like your whole life has been activity.
And yet, most of the time, when you take people's fucking devices away, they're like, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. There's something obviously, to me, incredibly depressing about a generation of people going to school and not doing any of the work.
Right.
Like just none of it.
Right.
Because they can just have the robots do it.
Right.
And like, what do you? Obviously, in my opinion, you're literally just cheating yourself, and not just in the practical way of not getting the education that you need to succeed in the real world, because in all likelihood you'll get jobs that you can also ask the robot to do for you when you achieve the real world. But like in a much more sort of holistic way of cheating yourself and cheating your brain out of the adversity and challenge of
they don't like those things,
accomplishing difficult things.
Right. And
the professors need to do better assignments. Make assignments robots can't do.
And also, no other generation has experienced this, right? So these kids are going through it, and no one else has. This wasn't an option for us 20 years ago, to where like you can just plug something in and it'll spit it back up. So you had no choice but to learn it. Like there's no way around the obstacle. You had to go through the obstacle, and we were better for it. But like if there's like an alternate route where you do nothing, like it's I don't know. It's a tempting path, and like there's no like tape on this. There's no like book on this. Like how should this be handled? And they're just kind of figuring it out. And
we have someone. Sorry?
I was going to say that they're basically the guinea pig. So, like, if this thing falls apart as many people expect, future generations will learn from it. Like, don't be like those bums.
Yeah. We have someone in our lives on a regular basis at this point through the baseball thing who uses, like, very clearly uses one of the AI robots to respond to text conversations or messages in the Little League Baseball group messaging function. And like it's super fucking weird. Like I present a problem and the response back is, well, on the one hand, we have this thing, which is bad. And on the other hand, we have this thing. And these two things are sort of incompatible in certain ways. And it's a difficult problem to have to navigate. I recognize that. Also, if I can be of any use in any way of helping to navigate these problems in the future, please feel free to it's like, what?
Yeah.
Where's the human being inside there? And why are you responding in this way? And why did you think that would be helpful? we have to somehow set hard and fast boundaries with people and their use of this fucking shit.
Right.
And like anyone who uses that to communicate to me on a personal level, I'm going to have serious problems with. Like in the bad old day, or in the good old days, I get a card from like a grandmother or like Lori's mother would love to go to the greeting card section at a grocery store and like find the right card that offers the right message and then put her name at the bottom of it and think I have done right. Like the notion of the greeting card
right.
has always been anathema to me. Like I would never choose one that I didn't think was a joke or that I couldn't modify in such a way such that it became like the joke is that I got you the greeting card, right? Instead of fucking coming up with 3 sentences of my own to communicate the thought. Much in that same way, that's how I think of these fucking chat robots, which is if you are incapable of expressing this thing in a way that is acceptable to you, then all you're doing is going to the greeting card section and picking out the right card, right? Or getting as close to it as possible. And they've just supercharged the American greetings or whatever, the Hallmark card version of interacting with your fellow humans. I know that you also have someone in your life
Yes.
who drops chat GPT responses into the chat,
Right.
as the kids say.
And it's hilariously obvious. It's remarkable that there's no like attempt. I don't use that technology yet. Maybe I'll give in, in the coming years. But for the time being,
Well, I've played with it. I'm not saying that I've completely
but just
ignored
like to
it.
pass it off as if I'm communicating with somebody, like pretending that I am actually responding and not like I.
That would be so fucking shameful.
Right.
Like I'm going to tell you right now, you fucking piece of shit, if you ever use it in the future, not just with me, but with anyone, know that you're going to hear my voice in your
Getting
head.
judged. He's judging.
Absolutely
You should
judging
not-
and giving you shit for it.
You should not be blinded by your judgment, Bob. That's clearly a distress signal. Help! Something has gone wrong.
That's not what that is.
You're too busy judging.
Seriously, though. Like, why is that? Why do people think that that's acceptable?
But what I don't understand is why, if I were to do something like that, I would feed it my previous, like, hey, this is like, make it sound like me. I'm not saying on one hand or on the other hand. Like, there's a voice that, you develop while you're chatting with people, text messaging, like a style. Some people use those faces and
Right.
exclamation points, and some people don't, So it's very clear, and some people don't bother correcting a spelling mistake. Others are very adamant about correcting anything, right? So, like, there's a way to go about it. But when you just I don't know what prompts are entering in these chat bots, but tighten it up. Refine it to where it at least sounds like you instead of just sounding like this ridiculous thing.
No, don't.
I just
don't
wouldn't
do
even
that
know
either.
what to tell it. It doesn't seem easier to me. It's another step.
Right, it is another
Like,
step,
I'll say it,
Right.
and the robot can do math for me or something. Like whatever.
These are people without. Like, I don't want to. Now I'm in danger of doing judgment.
Oh, you're in danger. I thought we were right.
That is perhaps not acceptable. That was socially appropriate judgment that I was doing earlier.
Whoa.
This is perhaps socially inappropriate.
Let's hear it.
Like antisocial judging now. But I suspect, and this is just me as a observer of my fellow human beings here, that these are people without a particularly firm understanding of or grasp of their own identity or their own voice, who have decided that it is therefore permissible to farm out that identity or that voice to something besides themselves, because they've perhaps spent an entire lifetime fairly insecure about their understanding of themselves in the world, and this is just a useful tool for establishing with some outside authority their own authorial voice. And that it makes me uncomfortable, because it always makes me uncomfortable to talk to people who don't have a firm sense of themselves, right? Like, that's sort of like what's important to me in terms of my interactions with other people. When I am most comfortable, it's when I'm talking to people who have, like I believe I do and always have, not something that I've ever really struggled with, but sort of not exactly a confidence that everything that they're saying is correct, but a confidence in the place that it's coming from, right? Like sort of a natural inborn understanding that this is coming from an authentic place, and that authentic place is me.
Right.
Like, and I know not everybody has that, and that's fucking difficult for them, I suppose.
Yeah, I never consider that like to some people, they don't identify with that aspect of their being, and or they're indifferent to it, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, like I would rather have the robot do it for me. Just like I would always use a calculator. Like I'm not doing stupid math. Just press the buttons and it'll tell it to me. I don't identify with math at all. Fuck math. But
Right.
It seems like I don't know what to add. People twice today, clients were like, "Have you played with ChatGPT at all?" And I told them both, like, I don't know what I would want from it. And I love robots. But like, what?
Right.
Aside from now I want that parody written, like this one thing. But like, played with it? How? What? What do you want?
It can be sort of a supercharged, like Gemini especially can be sort of a supercharged search engine.
Yeah, but I just do my own Google search.
Given the fact that Google search has become rather difficult to navigate in certain ways and less useful, the Gemini search has been useful in that regard.
Yeah, but I still just want my normal Google. Even though it isn't as good as it used to be, it's just like I get what I'm looking for. If I wanted to ask the robot,
I don't know. Google
because the way I search, like I think of the keywords. So if I said to the robot, like, I mean, I can't think of anything right now. What would I search?
For me, the irony here is that it used to be the case that Google felt like it opened the entire world of the internet up to you, that it made the internet this impossibly large place that like you couldn't even imagine the end of. And Google now, including with the use of Gemini or the other AI search functions, makes it all feel so much smaller. Yeah. Like it makes it feel like, oh no, there are only 3 things out there in the world.
So like the recipe I was using to make the bread, pan de campagna, if I put that in Google, it gives me recipes, it gives me a Wikipedia, it gives me a bunch of different things. If I put it in Gemini, it tells me what it translates to and the characteristics and the origin, and then says, would you like a recipe? Like, well, but I could have just, this was more clicks.
So I think it depends on the use case. So like my parents, either the washer or the dryer, one of them, is malfunctioning, so they're like, hey, figure it out. So I took a picture of like the model number of it, and so I plugged it into Google, and just gives you a bunch of links, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on, but then I plug it into one of these AI things, and it'll say, oh, that's the model for the Samsung electric whatever, and then I can just ask follow-up questions, and it becomes like this conversational search engine to where I can do follow-up questions, and it'll provide me links. So like in that situation, like it was a better experience than Google. But there are many things where Google is just the easiest path to an answer. But with other things, sometimes it helps to kind of like, hey, what is this and what time is that place usually closed, or plan me an itinerary for this trip, like things like that. It's better than Google. Right.
Did you want to add something else to the robots conversation here, Lori? You seem to be typing furiously into your machine there.
I want it to do this parody for me.
Oh. All right. Well, I will then move on to a Mark Strassmann episode. It's now time to play America's favorite game show. Did CBS News' senior national correspondent, Mark Strassmann, get off a good one? First, fair warning, we have to endure John Dickerson and a couple of good ones.
Oh, wow.
Necessity is not only the mother of invention, it is also the mother of reinvention. So when a Colorado town fell on hard times, it saw the need to reinvent itself. The town built on coal converted to charcoal and oils and watercolors as it made itself a mini mecca for artists. Mark Strassmann has tonight's Eye on America.
At Trinidad, Colorado's monthly gallery hop, these crowds prove something. This struggling community was a blank canvas all along.
The art scene is absolutely the focal point.
We met Karen Grigo on Main Street, part of the old Santa Fe Trail.
This used to be a defunct bakery.
She's fourth-generation Trinidadian in this town of roughly 8,200 people.
Pause. Gaze upon this fourth-generation Trinidadian.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know where Trinidad is. Is there another Trinidad?
Okay,
That's exactly the point.
well.
Did we just get Mark Strassmann to give us the just one drop formulation?
No, not necessarily, because someone had to own the slaves.
Yeah, and isn't there also an Tobago? Maybe that's where all the heavy lifting is. Tobago and Trinidad is
What sort of lifting?
you know what I mean.
Back to the report.
She knows so many of them
Hey there, how are you?
that they made her mayor.
I was really afraid for Trinidad because I didn't know what we could do to turn it around.
Trinidad used to be the capital of southern Colorado coal. That went away. Bleak times followed. As recently as 15 years ago, the vacancy rate on Main Street was 70%. The name of the local river had it right. Purgatory.
They haven't killed us yet.
And when it's been down, it's been way down?
It's been way down. You know, desperation. You say, okay, what can we do?
Then Trinidad got creative. Workshops, galleries, artist housing. Slowly, a new vision emerged. Painted, and they will come.
We have people moving here to do their art, to sell their art.
This is my most recent one. This is
Artists
Skipper
Leif
Dog.
Lathrop and Tracy Wall showed us their livelihood and Trinidad's. They moved here 6 years ago.
It's a bunch of incredibly talented people coming together.
If Trinidad did not emphasize the arts, would you be here?
No.
Any place that I can go and I have an opportunity to do it and even possibly flourish, that's where I'm going to go.
Josh Blanchard oversees the state's Creative Districts program. It offers grants, tech assistance, and seed money for entrepreneurs and nonprofits, with an emphasis on small towns.
I mean, you can't just throw up a gallery and hope it's going to work.
It is more complicated. It has to include community buy-in. We have 30 communities across the state with creative districts that have been certified.
As an arts hub, Trinidad now sees itself as a baby Santa Fe.
We didn't get in this situation overnight, and we're not going to get ourselves out of it overnight.
Does it show that the arts can be an economic engine?
I mean, I think it creates an expectation of success. And they say, oh, that's someplace I'm going to make it to. I'm going to go check it out. So it creates this momentum.
It has, in Trinidad, a touch of art heaven on the other side of purgatory. For Eye on America, Mark Strassmann in Trinidad, Colorado.
All right, Abe, did CBS News' senior national correspondent, Mark Strassmann, get off a good one?
I would say he did.
Strassmann gets off a good one.
Yeah, he had a couple decent ones.
This ChatGPT has given me bullshit. It sucks.
Fair enough. I want a couple of things out of this report. A couple of notes here for Strassmann. One, what is the GDP contribution to the town of Trinidad for these fucking paintings of horses and the clay pots? Like, so we've opened up a couple of fucking galleries in town, and this is revitalizing an entire defunct coal miners situation here.
Yeah.
I have my doubts.
What was the vacancy rate? 70%? What is it down to, like 63 now?
And we're going to attribute that to the landscapes. The other thing that I want in this report is I want him to have brought someone from like MoMA or the Met to haughtily walk through the halls of this small town gallery, just going, trash, trash, amateur, trash, like just viciously judging the art that these fucking yokels are trying to pass off as an economic powerhouse here.
You don't approve of the horse painting, Bob?
I mean, there's a reason that you can go to like any what do they call it? Like a wine and like
Paint and pints.
Oh, like those things,
paint and pint, or yeah.
Sips and swirls.
Yeah, you can go and take a class and in a couple of hours walk out feeling slightly tipsy and also have a passable horse or landscape drawing or painting with you. Like, I'm not saying that they're bad, but
why must you kick a town when they're down? I mean, they're trying to, they have a gimmick going, and they got Strassmann on the story.
Yeah. Anyway, today I learned that there is a Trinidad, Colorado.
The more you know.
You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Lori's here too. Find the show on Substack, brainiron.substack.com for more from us, including the Billboard Hot 100 game, available exclusively by going to brainiron.substack.com, where you can listen to those episodes where we listen to old music and new music and complain about both of them, mostly. This week being a prime example of two bad songs going into pitched battle with one another. And for once, modern music comes out on top. So we're not so committed to the bit that we are disingenuous in our assessment of things here. We are, as ever, objective observers of the world around us, not here to judge, but to simply offer our observations. Speaking of, Abe, actually, first, I should mention that the opening and closing themes of the show were composed by Mark Gillig, tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com. For more from Mark and his buddies. Abe, did you make it to the movies this week?
I did. I went to go see Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning with Tom Cruise and others.
Have there been previous reckonings?
So there was, the last one was something Reckoning Chapter 1 or something. I didn't see a chapter in this one.
Was that Ghost Reckoning or something? Chapter 1?
Something Reckoning. But I don't know what happened to that. But yeah, so this is The Final Reckoning. And so the movie, I found it mostly entertaining. However, 2 hours, 49-minute runtime. Right?
It's long.
Almost 3 hours. Also very heavy on exposition and flashback. So like if you have a terrible memory and you forgot how things played out in all the previous installments of this movie franchise, no need to know anything. Because like not only do they explain it through the dialogue, they actually cut to the flashback. So like if it's something from Mission Impossible, the original, it'll cut to that scene.
They show clips? This is a clips show version of a Mission Impossible movie?
Yeah, which explains why it was such a bloated kind of thing. You know, the first hour is just explaining why Tom Cruise is going to do the ridiculous things he's going to do in that last hour, where it's just all action. But yeah, there was one scene where there was a older guy, and I guess basically it's like, oh, you know who that is. Because like some people in the crowd was like, oh, that's a guy. But then I didn't know who the fuck this guy was. But thankfully the movie helped me out. And they cut back to when, what's his face? Tom Cruise was going down and stealing something from some enclosed area. And this guy walked in and he didn't catch him.
Like the most famous scene in the entire franchise history where he does the line drop down into the...
So basically that guy, they got that actor to reprise his role. And so they literally showed that scene and they come back to the present. So like...
Wait, like the security guard or the
guy in the suit.
Okay.
Yeah. He was like, sent to some
Why
backwater.
would that matter?
Because to explain, like, who the fuck is this guy? Because he's like a prominent, like he has some scenes that he chews up. So you kind of have to know, who is this guy? So they did a lot of that. So if you have problems with that sort of storytelling, you may not particularly like it. I don't mind it. Then it helped me out. And then like there were a lot of great action sequences where you know that this is actually what this crazy Scientologist actually did. Like, there was like an airplane scene and you know that this is actually happening. Right. And so, like, entertaining for the most part, like I said, with just those two things. If you don't like very long movies and if you don't like movies that are very heavy on this is why this is happening in dialogue form.
A lot of hand-holding.
Yeah, you like it. I will say, I found it out that this is the opening weekend. I watched this movie when it came out. I didn't wait a couple of weeks. I watched it when it came out. And when I went to the theater, my screen was one of the lower, smaller screens. Usually,
that's not okay. You should see this movie on a big screen. That's not cool.
Opening weekend, Tom Cruise, you're thinking all the premium format screens will go to that. But instead, there's some kid movie, Lilo and Stitch.
Yes.
Not familiar with it at all. Did tremendous numbers at the box office. $146 million this holiday weekend compared to 60-some million.
Why would they put those two movies up against each other? There are no movies that come out.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, this has been a dreadful winter and spring. You couldn't spread the wealth to where everybody gets what they want. Maybe the money would have been the same, or maybe a little more or less, but like at least have, the first 2 weekends of Mission Impossible being in the Dolby and the IMAX and the whatnot. And instead, they allowed it for like one showing, like very late at night, that I didn't want to go to. And so
that's something that like would, because if I were to, like, I had an inkling to want to go see this movie. Obviously we're too busy for such things, but like if I was like then going to go into my movie theater app here and like look through and only to discover that it wasn't showing in the best theater available, I would just be, fuck it. I'm not going then. Why would I bother?
Yeah, I don't understand that. But I guess, this kid movie, that's what the kids want to see. Because there were a lot, the theater was packed and I was like, a lot of kids, and they weren't going into the Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible was just a bunch of older dudes. It was dude heavy. I don't know what the demo breakdown is, but at least in my theater, lots of dudes.
I imagine it's pretty dude heavy.
A couple of them wanted to like awkwardly have these applause moments. I was like, come on, just shut up. Like, it's like the person.
You don't clap.
They don't have friends.
Fucking losers.
But it was just.
Don't judge.
I know it's a 3-hour movie, but on 3 separate occasions, they try to get a clap going. And it's like, dude, it's just not working. Just watch the movie. Nothing is happening.
Abe, it's tough out there for white guys. They need something to applaud.
And so one other thing I will say, not for the movie as far as what I watched, I just happened to have the TV on when the Indy 500 was going on at the beginning. Oh, yeah. And this was, I guess, there was some sort of weather event, and so it was delayed by a few minutes, so they were killing some time. And your boy Michael Strahan, from the G-Man, and now he does television for ABC, they had him on just to do some cross-promotional nonsense. I don't know what was going on. But what I did notice is that they were like, hey...
I have a question about this before you tell your story here.
Yeah.
Michael Strahan shows up everywhere across the ABC properties, right? Like
everywhere.
He's fucking everywhere.
Right. He's literally everywhere.
Does he have some sort of a contract where it's like, look, Michael, we're paying you fucking $17 million a year, $25 million a year. If we tell you to fucking show up at the Indy 500, you got to show. And no, there's nothing extra in the check.
Right.
Like we cover the hotel, we put you on the plane. But like you're just a company man, you got to go do the fucking thing.
Yeah.
Or does he have a contract with Good Morning America and now he gets... Like he's doing them favors, or like he gets extra money for going and doing extra things. Like what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know how the contract situation works. So they also had Tom Brady doing like the pacer lap or whatever. But with Strahan tying it to the AI issue, a topic we had a second ago. Yeah. They had this goofy segment, I guess, just to kill clock. Like, hey, Michael Strahan, what would have been like if you were IndyCar racer? And so they played this video clip, 3 minutes of AI Michael Strahan being a IndyCar driver. It was just the most bizarre 3 minutes of television you'll see, where it's just like, like he's narrating. Michael Strahan's like, he grew up in Germany. I didn't know that. But, it's like, when I was in Germany, I wanted to be a race car driver. It could be bullshit. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. Big fan of the Autobahn, was he?
Yeah, he mentioned the Autobahn. And I came to America.
Believe me, I can write this fucking stupid segment too, just like the fucking robots can.
And so they stitched together some actual clips of him being a whatever school he went to and the Giants and all that. And then him wearing a NASCAR like jumpsuit and getting in a car. It was very weird. I don't know who thought this was a good idea. But that was the other thing.
Like when The Rock came out to do the Super Bowl introductions.
That's
like, what is,
right. Yeah. Like what's happening?
Is he doing here?
Yeah.
Like why?
Well, but Tom Cruise did the Super Bowl introduction last time.
But not everybody has to be in everything.
Right.
Like not everything has to be about everything else. Like it's just, I'm watching the Indy 500 not because I'm a fucking Michael Strahan fan.
Right.
Like, you're not driving any engagement in that way.
Right. Trying to see if there's a crash. No.
Yeah, obviously. Anything else on TV you watched? I guess you're watching NBA playoffs and whatnot.
NBA playoffs. Yeah, the winner of the Indy 500 show. It was a pretty good day if you're a sports fan in Indianapolis because they had the Indy 500 earlier in the day, and then they had the Pacers game in Indianapolis that night. And so the guy who won the Indy 500 showed up to the basketball game. He probably like, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
They're all obviously continuing to celebrate the death of Colts owner Jim Irsay.
That's right. Of course. It's 30 days of mourning.
Sad end to the Jim Irsay story.
I know. He looks so rough for 65.
Yeah.
I like that you paid tribute to him on your other podcast by talking about what a totally wasted life he had.
Is it not true, though? I mean, why? Swing and a miss.
Yeah, you're not wrong. What did we watch, Lori?
Not shit. We watched some YouTube. We don't watch anything anymore because
You know what? In part, it's because that HBO show I had no interest in really watching the video game zombie
The Last
show.
of Us. Yeah,
I don't have the bandwidth for a heavy drama.
Yeah.
Like White Lotus was as much as I can do, and then they're like, okay, next week. Zombie death.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Is there any fun show
Give me
out
a
there
minute.
now? Like, it's just like a fun watch.
We were watching Shoresy, but Bob doesn't watch that with me anymore.
Of course, we'll finish it. We'll keep it going.
But also,
I like Shoresy a lot. People should watch Shoresy. Great show.
We're so tired. And it's just so nice to just put on a video on YouTube of like a bunch of different bartenders making the same cocktail.
Yeah, we've been watching. Is it Epicurious or is it somebody else? They do this.
That's some of them.
Or
like 3 different people making a quesadilla.
Yeah, 3 different levels of chefs make this fucking meal, and then you get to laugh at the idiot
like
home chef who's trying to do it. Yeah, it's not great for the brain, probably.
No, it's fine.
The way that
we're
watching
so
stuff.
tired.
Yeah. I've been, I mentioned, I think a couple of weeks ago, listening to an audio book called Red Rising. Pierce Brown. It was Red Rising was book 1. The second book in I think it's a trilogy, is called Golden Sun. It's, as I mentioned, a bit more young adult, sort of YA level of stuff than I would prefer, probably. It's perfectly enjoyable, entertaining, distraction, more or less. It's sort of like Dune meets Hunger Games and like the Special Boy Harry Potter kind of story, but a good bit more Dune. That's why you have to throw the Dune thing in there, like this sort of troubled messiah figure that they're trying to cultivate. But it's perfectly fine. If you're into those 3 things that I just mentioned, I think you would probably get a kick out of this series. And I imagine it will be developed for television or movies at some point. It was a fairly successful property.
When did the book come out?
I don't know, 2015 or something maybe. Book came out in 2014.
Okay.
A dystopian science fiction novel by Pierce Brown. I think I saw that he wrote this thing in a fairly short order. Like he just sort of went away for a weekend and then came out with the book. And my thought was, yeah, it checks out.
I mean, he came out with the book and then he did a lot of refining and editing and whatnot.
I imagine so, yeah. But yeah, it's perfectly fine. But that's about it. I've been even, like I said, I haven't even been listening to The Gist lately. I don't listen to my daily news podcasts much the last week or so. Just utterly checked out. And I don't know, I don't know why. I think this happened also during the Biden presidency, where it's like,
yeah.
Need a break from that shit to some extent.
This Memorial Day is 5 years since the George Floyd thing, right? It's crazy how many years it's been.
Yeah. Abe, have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
I guess that's all we've got for you tonight, then. And we will talk to you next time.
Later.
Super fucking weird.
It's so weird.
Don't use the robots.
I suspect that there's been no pushback so far, and there still isn't. You know, everybody's either just not saying anything
about what?
About
it would be like it would be impolite.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
Because it's not the first message she communicated using this robot, right? So she must have done it.
all of them.
So yes, no one said anything. Either it just escapes their notice,
No
or
one's
they're
gonna
like,
say
yeah, it'd be
anything.
rude to bring up. So cost-free action.
Do you not fucking dump on Mike when he's using ChatGPT
Because it's
to do stuff?
Okay, I don't know why it mattered. The first major use of it was everybody who's a father in the group chat was saying something about Father's Day.
Right.
And then there was this strange bit of text where it was sent from Mike, but I was like, there's no way. And everybody noticed the same thing. And immediately the pushback, get the fuck out of here, that's not you, da-da-da.
Right.
I'm like, just a total rejection of this, what was like a very some blah, 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 fatherhood, whatever.
Right, a fucking Hallmark card.
Yeah, but it was just
he brought a Hallmark card to the fucking cookout.
Right.
Don't bring a Hallmark card to the fucking cookout, you fucking weirdo.
It's just, especially how it just stands out. It's so noticeable. Like, that's not how you talk.
Yeah.
No cursing involved, nothing.
It's weird. I don't know why. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's just easier for them. Like, just.
I mean, obviously it's easier. I put such value on my ability to sit here and bullshit for 2 hours and turn it into something that is interesting and worth listening to. And obviously I haven't achieved that yet because nobody listens to it. But it's entertaining to me, right?
Yeah,
the firing of the synapses creates interesting chains of thought here that captivate me enough.
Right.
Why would I farm that out to somebody else?
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah. Especially it atrophies if you don't use it.
Right. Absolutely. Anyway,
All right.
back to my baseball only thought process. It's like the fucking podcast has become the only time I'm not thinking about baseball, which is fucking insane.
Champion of
Calvin.
clogs strikes again.
That's right. What did he say?
I clogged the toilet too well.
I clogged it too well. Fucking dipshit.
You need to give him stool softener or something, probably.
No, he's fine. Anyway. All right, man.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you later.
Good night.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.